The insults you hear in a narcissistic relationship. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone and thought, why do I suddenly feel like I'm the problem? Maybe you were trying to explain how something they said hurt you. Maybe you were asking for basic respect. Maybe you were simply saying, I don't like the way you're speaking to me. And somehow, instead of addressing what happened, the conversation turned into an attack on your intelligence, your appearance, your character, your emotions, or even your worth. You came into the conversation trying to solve a problem. You left questioning yourself. And that is what makes certain kinds of insults in difficult relationships so confusing. They are not always obvious. Sometimes they sound like jokes. Sometimes they are disguised as concern. Sometimes they are delivered with a smile. Sometimes they come after you establish a boundary. And sometimes the words themselves are not even particularly dramatic. But after hearing them repeatedly, you begin to notice something disturbing. You are becoming smaller inside the relationship. Today, we're going to talk about some of the common insulting patterns that can appear in relationships involving narcissistic traits or emotionally unhealthy communication. But there is something important I want to establish before we begin. This video is not about diagnosing your partner, labeling someone a narcissist, or convincing you that every rude comment means you are in an abusive relationship. People can say hurtful things for many reasons. One unhealthy statement does not tell you everything about a person. What matters is the pattern. Does the person repeatedly use insults to silence you? Do they attack your character instead of discussing the issue? Do they make you feel that you have to earn basic respect? Do they refuse to take responsibility and turn every concern back onto you? And most importantly, what happens when you tell them that their words are hurting you? Because sometimes the most revealing part isn't the insult. It's what happens after you say, that wasn't okay. If you find this kind of psychological and relationship education helpful, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. And while you're listening, I want you to think about something. What is one phrase you've heard in a difficult relationship that stayed with you long after the conversation ended? You can share it in the comments. Your experience may help someone else recognize a pattern they couldn't put into words. Now let's begin. The first type of insult is the attack on your intelligence. You may hear things like, you're so stupid. You never understand anything. Do I have to explain everything to you? Why can't you use your brain? You're always confused. You're not smart enough to understand what I'm saying. On the surface, these sound like ordinary insults. But repeated attacks on someone's intelligence can have a deeper effect. They can make a person stop trusting their own judgment. Imagine bringing up a legitimate concern and hearing, you wouldn't understand. You explain yourself again. They say, see? This is exactly why I can't talk to you. Eventually, you may begin entering every conversation wondering whether your thoughts are actually valid. You start checking your memory. You start rewriting your messages before sending them. You hesitate before asking questions. You become afraid of saying the wrong thing. That is why the healthier response isn't necessarily to prove that you are smarter than the other person. You don't need to win an intelligence competition. You can simply recognize the communication pattern and say, I am willing to discuss the issue, but I am not willing to be insulted. That's a boundary. And notice the difference. A boundary doesn't require you to convince the other person that they're a terrible person. It simply tells them what you will and will not participate in. The second pattern is insulting your emotions. This can sound like, you're too sensitive. You're dramatic. You're always overreacting. You cry about everything. You're crazy. You make everything a big deal. Now let's be careful here. Sometimes people genuinely do have different emotional reactions to the same situation. Someone may honestly believe that you're overreacting. That disagreement alone doesn't prove manipulation. The problem begins when your emotions are consistently used to dismiss the actual issue. For example, imagine you say, when you spoke to me that way in front of everyone, I felt embarrassed. Instead of discussing the behavior, the response becomes, here we go again. You're too sensitive. Now the conversation is no longer about what happened. It is about whether you're allowed to have the reaction you're having. And that's an important distinction. Healthy communication can sound like, I didn't realize that hurt you. I saw the situation differently, but I understand why you felt embarrassed. Unhealthy communication may sound like, your feelings are the problem. The goal isn't to demand that everyone agree with your emotions. The goal is to create space where both people can discuss them respectfully. The third pattern is the insult disguised as humor. This one can be especially confusing. They say something cruel. You react. Then they laugh and say, relax. I'm only joking. You can't take a joke. I was just playing with you. You're too serious. But humor should not become a permanent hiding place for disrespect. A joke can be funny without repeatedly humiliating the same person. And if someone notices that a particular joke hurts you, a healthy response is usually curiosity or consideration. They might say, I didn't realize that bothered you. I won't do that again. But if the same comment keeps returning, followed by the same excuse, pay attention to the pattern. Sometimes the real issue isn't whether the statement was technically a joke. The question is, why does this person keep choosing something they know hurts me? The fourth pattern is the comparison insult. You're nothing like my ex. She was much easier to deal with. Other women don't behave like this. Other men know how to treat a woman. My friends don't have these problems. Anyone else would appreciate what I do. Comparison can create an unhealthy competition inside a relationship. Instead of solving the problem between two people, suddenly you're competing against an imaginary standard. And if this happens repeatedly, you may start trying to become someone else just to avoid criticism. You change your clothes. You change your personality. You stop expressing certain opinions. You become quieter. You start asking yourself, what do I need to become so this person will finally be satisfied? But a healthy relationship shouldn't require you to erase yourself to receive basic kindness. The fifth pattern is the insult toward your appearance. Maybe it's your weight, your clothing, your hair, your face, your age, your body, your attractiveness. You may hear, you've really let yourself go. You looked better before. Who would want you looking like that? You think you're attractive? Don't get too confident. Again, one careless comment doesn't tell the entire story of a relationship. But repeated attacks on someone's appearance can gradually damage confidence. And there is something particularly unhealthy about using someone's insecurity as ammunition during conflict. If someone knows that you're sensitive about something and repeatedly brings it up whenever they're angry, that's worth taking seriously. You don't have to prove your beauty to someone who is committed to criticizing you. Your worth is not determined by another person's approval. The sixth pattern is the character attack. This is when the conversation moves from what you did to who you supposedly are. Instead of, I didn't like what happened, it becomes, you're selfish, you're dishonest, you're impossible, you're a bad person, you ruin everything, you're just like everyone else. This distinction matters. There is a huge difference between criticizing a behavior and attacking someone's entire identity. A healthy disagreement might sound like, I was hurt when you canceled without telling me. An unhealthy argument might become, you're selfish. You never care about anyone. The first statement identifies a behavior. The second creates a global judgment about the person. When conversations consistently become character attacks, resolving the original issue becomes almost impossible. Because now you're defending your entire identity. And that's where many people become exhausted. The seventh pattern is the insult that attacks your independence. Sometimes the words sound like, you couldn't survive without me. Who would want you? You need me. You'd have nothing without me. Let's see how far you get on your own. This type of language can create fear around independence. You may begin believing that leaving, disagreeing, or standing up for yourself means losing everything. But healthy love does not require someone to feel powerless without you. A healthy relationship should allow two people to have individuality. You can love someone deeply and still have your own opinions, friendships, interests, goals, and boundaries. The eighth pattern is the insult that appears when you set a boundary. This one is important. You say, I don't want to be spoken to that way. And suddenly you hear, look at you acting important. You've changed. Who do you think you are? You're becoming disrespectful. You're too difficult now. Notice what happened. You didn't attack them. You simply said what you would and wouldn't accept. But your boundary itself became the offense. This is why boundaries can reveal a lot about a relationship. A respectful person may disagree with your boundary. They may feel disappointed. They may need time to understand it. But they can still respect your right to have one. A controlling dynamic may treat your boundary as a personal betrayal. And if every attempt to establish reasonable limits leads to punishment, insults, guilt, or intimidation, that is something worth examining carefully. The ninth pattern is the insult followed by withdrawal. Sometimes the insult isn't the entire tactic. The sequence matters. They criticize you. You defend yourself. They become cold. They stop speaking to you. They ignore you. Then eventually, you may find yourself apologizing simply to restore peace. This can create a powerful cycle. Conflict, insult, withdrawal, anxiety, apology, temporary peace. Then the cycle repeats. The problem is that the person may learn that insults and withdrawal are effective ways to control the direction of the relationship. And you may learn something equally dangerous. I have to make peace, even when I wasn't the one who caused the problem. This doesn't mean every period of silence is manipulation. People sometimes need space to calm down. The difference is whether space is being used respectfully or as punishment. Someone can say, "I am too angry to discuss this right now. I need an hour, and then we can talk." That is very different from deliberately withholding communication to make someone desperate enough to surrender. The 10th pattern is the insult that makes you feel impossible to please. You try to improve. They move the standard. You apologize. They bring up something else. You fix one issue. They criticize another. Eventually, you begin thinking, "Nothing I do is ever enough." This can be emotionally exhausting. And here's an important reminder. You are not required to become perfect to deserve respect. Relationships involve growth. You will make mistakes. Your partner will make mistakes. Both people should be able to apologize, learn, repair, and try again. But if one person is always the defendant and the other person is always the judge, something is wrong with the dynamic. Now here's where I want to take this conversation deeper. Because the most important question isn't, what insult did they use? The most important question is, what happens when you respond? Imagine you say, "That comment hurt me." Do they listen? Do they become curious? Do they apologize? Do they make an effort to change? Or do they immediately attack you again? See? You're proving my point. You're too sensitive. You always make yourself the victim. You're the problem. That response can tell you much more than the original insult. Healthy relationships aren't relationships where nobody ever says anything wrong. Healthy relationships are relationships where people can repair what they damage. That means accountability matters. If someone hurts you and can genuinely say, "I shouldn't have spoken to you like that," that's meaningful. If they say, "I was angry, but that doesn't excuse what I said," that's accountability. If they change the behavior over time, that's even more meaningful. But if every conversation becomes an argument about why you deserved the disrespect, the problem is much deeper than a single insult. And I want to make something clear for anyone watching this who recognizes themselves in these examples. You don't have to diagnose the other person before deciding that a pattern is unhealthy. You don't need a psychological label to say, "I don't want to be treated this way." You don't need to prove that someone is a narcissist before establishing a boundary. And you don't need permission to take repeated disrespect seriously. At the same time, don't let a video like this convince you that every disagreement means you are dealing with a narcissist. That's not the purpose of this conversation. The purpose is awareness. Look at patterns. Look at consistency. Look at accountability. Look at whether both people are allowed to speak. Look at whether mistakes can be repaired. Look at whether boundaries are respected. And look at how you feel over time. Are you becoming more secure? Or are you constantly afraid of saying the wrong thing? Are disagreements helping you understand each other? Or are they becoming battles where one person has to win and the other has to surrender? Those questions are much more useful than simply asking, is this person a narcissist? And if you're currently in a relationship where insults are accompanied by threats, intimidation, physical violence, stalking, financial control, or fear for your safety, please don't reduce the situation to a communication problem. Your safety matters. Reach out to someone you trust and consider getting appropriate professional or local support. You don't have to handle serious situations completely alone. And for everyone else, here's something I want you to remember. Someone's repeated insult does not automatically become your identity. If someone repeatedly calls you stupid, that doesn't make you stupid. If someone repeatedly calls you difficult, that doesn't automatically make you difficult. If someone says you're too sensitive, that doesn't mean your feelings are meaningless. If someone tells you that nobody else would want you, that is not a measurement of your worth. Sometimes people say things during conflict that reveal more about their communication style than they reveal about the person they're attacking. So don't automatically internalize every label someone gives you. Pause. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Is there evidence for it? Is this person giving me useful feedback? Or are they trying to hurt me? And perhaps most importantly, would I speak to someone I love this way? If the answer is no, ask yourself why you have accepted it as normal when directed toward you. You deserve relationships where disagreement doesn't require humiliation. You deserve conversations where you can say, "That hurt me," without being mocked for having feelings. You deserve the ability to establish reasonable boundaries without being punished for them. And you deserve relationships where accountability goes in both directions. So, the next time someone insults you during a disagreement, don't immediately rush to defend every part of yourself. Take a breath, listen carefully, identify what actually happened, and if necessary, calmly say, "I am willing to discuss the issue, but I will not continue a conversation where I am being insulted." Then watch what happens next. Because sometimes the boundary doesn't change the other person's behavior. It simply reveals it. And that revelation can be valuable. If this video gave you language for something you've been experiencing, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What's one insulting phrase that people often disguise as a joke, criticism, or honest opinion? Keep the conversation respectful. You never know who may read your comment and realize they're not alone. And if you want more videos about emotional boundaries, unhealthy relationship patterns, discernment, self-respect, and understanding difficult people without losing your own peace, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next conversation. But before you leave, remember this. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to convince everyone to understand you. You don't have to respond to every insult. And you don't have to accept disrespect simply because someone calls it a joke, honesty, anger, or love. Sometimes strength sounds very simple. I hear what you're saying. I will consider constructive criticism, but I will not accept being degraded. That is not arrogance. That's self-respect. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in an unhealthy conversation isn't to find the perfect comeback. It's to recognize the pattern, protect your peace, and decide what kind of communication you are willing to participate in. Thank you for watching. If this message helped you, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with someone who may need a reminder that healthy communication should never require them to lose their dignity.